There was a 1957 Ford that was for sale that was being maintained in my hometown of Newton, North Carolina, and Junior Johnson was the driver. And Junior was winning races in that race car, and so I was cocky enough to believe if he could win in it, I could win in it. And so they wanted to sell it. They was building Junior a new Dodge to run in the Southern 500 that year, which was just a month away. And so they wanted $2,000 for this 57 Ford. And I said, I'll go down there and I'll write them a check. Wait till the bank closes, and I'll write them a check for that car. And I'll go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. There was a race there on Saturday night. Paid $950 to win. And then there was one at the old Charlotte Fairgrounds track in Charlotte, North Carolina on Sunday afternoon. And it also paid $950 to win. And so I told my brother and my friend, I said, I'll go win those two races, and I'll have the money then to cover that check on Monday morning for that I'm going to give him for that race car. That was $1,900 I'd get by winning the two races. And of course they laughed and I said, you can't be that crazy. And I said, yeah, I'd do that. And so anyway, I bargained for the car the next morning and got them to let the mechanics go with me that weekend. And they loaned me the truck and the trailer that they hauled the race car on, gave me an extra set of tires, or threw that in for the $2,000. Got all of that for $2,000. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have anything. All I had was the desire and a bad check. And so anyway, after I rushed down there after the bank closed, it stayed open on Saturday to noon, we rushed down there at the check and said, I've decided to buy it. We took off to Myrtle Beach. Got down there too late to practice any, but we did qualify 8th. I had driven the car once before at Columbia, South Carolina, so I had a little bit of a feel for it. And as the race went on, then I found myself up fighting for the lead in the hardest race that I ever drove in my life. But we won it, and it was a tough deal. Back then, the steering wheels, the way they fixed them so that the steering wheels were no bigger than your thumb, and on a regular stock car. And the way that they would build them up would wrap foam rubber around the steering wheel and electrician's tape to hold that on. And they had just done that to this car. And I didn't know until I got in the race that whoever wrapped it with that electrician tape had wrapped it backwards. And so as I was turning the wheel to the left, it was that raw tape, the edge of that tape was started cutting into my hand. And I didn't have gloves on, and it was too late then once I found out what was going on. So I just had to suck it up and go on. And the track got extremely rough. I mean, the holes came in as big as this table that we're sitting at here. It was a big field of cars there. But Jim Paschal and Bob Welborn were the two that I really had to battle at the end of the race. And we had switched the lead at least once or twice every lap for 30 or 40 laps. I mean, we were really having a great race for the fans. And anyway, I passed him going into turn 3, expecting him to pass me back off of turn 4. But we came off of turn 4 to get the white flag, and I looked in my rearview mirror, and he was headed to the pits. He'd broken a wheel down. And so I was far enough ahead of Paschal that I didn't have to worry too much. And so went on and won that race. And when I got to the little victory lane ceremony, which was held out on the racetrack, the blood was just going everywhere. So they put a tourniquet on my right arm to stop the blood flow so they could make the trophy presentation. And I looked down and I could see the bone in my hand. It had just eaten the meat off of it. But there's a little hospital in Conway, South Carolina. We stopped in there about 2 o'clock in the morning, and they went in and they bandaged it up, put some antiseptics on it or whatever they put on it, to get me through the night. And so we went on and worked on the car, got it ready the next day, and run along in the race the next day, top 5. Everything was going according to plan, but I was total wreck physically. I was in no condition to drive that race car because my hand was all bandaged up, and even though we had fixed the steering wheel, but still it was too much damage had already been done. So got Joe Weatherly to drive. He fell out of the race, so he got in the car and he drove it for a while, but he was too short. Joe was about a foot shorter than I was, and he just didn't fit in that seat at all. And but he kept it in contention. Then Junior Johnson was driving a Wood Brothers Ford that day, and he blew an engine. And so I saw him standing in the pits, and during the caution, wheeled in and got him to get in the car because the seat was already set for him anyway. We didn't change it for me. I mean, we could use the same seat. So he got in the car and went on and won the race. And so that's what launched me into Grand National racing.
Oh,
and so I had the $1,900 the next morning to cover that check at the bank. And Junior and Joe Weatherly both, the story had gotten around in the pits about the bad check, and so they wouldn't take a dime for helping me drive it. And so they knew I needed all the money to cover the check, and so that's what launched me into Grand National.